and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard, Esquire. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
I am happier than a schoolgirl on a cold winter day.
I didn't know schoolgirls were happy on cold winter days.
You can always tell because the turkey's done. Ooh.
You're a horrible, horrible human being.
I am. If you can't handle being the rat bastard, then,
you're going to pick up the slack?
I'm going to have to, yep. Goody two-shoes.
At least that debate's settled.
No, I'm doing pretty good.
Well, cool. You know, we talked a little earlier this year about new segments.
Yes.
And we've got one.
We does?
We do.
Cool.
Friend of the show, guest on Solitaire Rose Radio, helped us with the FallCon episodes. My pal, Lyndon, has recorded a thing about anime, manga, and conventions with me. And we're going to do it about every 2-3 weeks. We're going to just learn about this stuff because I don't read a lot of manga anymore. And I only watch really like one anime at a time, although there's a whole bunch on Netflix that maybe I'll get to. Joe, do you follow any anime or manga yourself?
Not really. I mean, I barely have time to follow what I want to follow, much less anything else.
So I sat down with our friend Lyndon Palmer, and this is what we talked about. I have with me for this segment, and it will be a recurring segment, probably at least twice a month, maybe more if I can wrangle it. Lyndon, who was with us at the FallCon, and now we're going to talk about stuff I don't know much about, and that is the Japanese comic world of manga, the Japanese animation world of anime, and conventions where people actually leave their houses and talk to each other, which I'm not a big fan of. So, good afternoon, good evening, whenever people are listening to this. How are you today?
Well, I'm doing pretty well. I actually spent some time and did research for this because I don't know why.
What?
Yeah, I don't know why you think I'm a credible source, but here I am.
You know more than me.
Well, you're not wrong, but that's not like a high bar to pass, though.
Well, there is that, but that's okay.
Well, yeah.
We let Joe on the show, and he doesn't know much of anything.
Well, that's fair. You got to give him something sometimes.
We let me on the show, and Lord knows I'm an idiot.
Yeah, you know a lot about comics. A lot of really random facts.
Well, that doesn't change the fact that
and
I'm
a
an idiot.
lot of dirty jokes.
That I don't tell on the air, believe it or not.
Ah, I'm surprised.
Well, that's because we leave the cursing for other people.
Yeah, respect.
So, first off, what have you been reading lately that you've enjoyed?
Lately I have been reading Owari no Seraph, which the English name for that would be Seraph of the End. And I didn't realize how much of the end that one actually meant, because it turns out to be a post-apocalyptic series. At first it seems like a humans versus vampires thing, but then it turns into humans versus vampires, then humans versus vampires versus vampires, and then humans versus vampires versus God versus demons. And so far it's been an incredible ride.
And how many books are there so far?
I think currently all that's out in America is 7 right now, but I think it's over 30, 40 chapters maybe in Japan.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's really good. It's more supernatural and action-packed based, which I do enjoy. The kind of summary plot beyond, verses and everything would be a virus hit the world and everybody generally above the age of 13 just died. And after that, the vampires came over and took everything over and turned everybody into livestock. So, yeah, this follows one of those livestocks who is hell-bent on getting revenge.
And it is published through Viz, I take it?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
See, I did not do that much research. Come on.
Oh! Now, one that you told me I need to read is One Punch Man.
Yes. And be careful with that one because there's One Punch Man and there's also One Punch Man. The first one is the original webcomic that looks like it was drawn by a 5-year-old. And then the new one is the exact same content word for word, but drawn better.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's incredible. That one's a comedy, and it parodies a lot of shonens.
Now explain to the people what a shonen
Oh,
is.
right. Shonen, that is literally in Japanese means boy. It's more of a boys comic, so there's more action, more grit for your standard generic boy needs. So, and which the opposite would be shoujo, which is the literal translation for girl, which tends to be the more dramas and romances.
So, how many volumes are there of One Punch Man?
You know, I still didn't do that much research. This is where you put it in the comment section.
So now for both of these, are there anime for either of them?
Yes.
Have they been adapted?
Yes, actually both of them just recently. I believe One Punch Man just finished airing last season of anime, which generally comes out winter, fall, spring, summer. And it hit the charts, and it remained at the most popular anime for several weeks.
Now, is this what people watch on TV, what they buy, what they rent? How do they judge what the most popular anime is? Because with manga, it's what do people buy?
Yes, that's true. This is mostly lots and lots of polls on the internet.
The anime that's coming out, how much of it is run on TV and how much of it is you have to rent it somewhere?
Renting it generally does not exist, but if the season is just coming out, it will be up on Hulu for the most part. A lot of them are. One Punch Man was there, as was the Seraph of the End. Then sometimes they go over to Netflix once they've been out for a while. And Crunchyroll has a lot. Crunchyroll being the anime version of Hulu and Netflix.
Okay, and I also know that Funimation has their own service as well.
Yep, I think that's on their website.
Now, in Japan, is this stuff shown on TV, or how is it?
They are generally shown on TV.
Okay. Because I always wondered, I know with British TV, they do seasons, and the seasons are usually short and pre-planned out. And as one of my favorite jokes on Community, the British version of Cougar Town was only 6 episodes. In Japan, do they run TV a lot like we do, where it's, okay, here's a season, and then there's a break, or is it more like with the way they show One Piece, where we have a new episode every week for the rest of our lives?
That's because they have so many chapters, over 600 or 900, I can't remember. But they generally do the season thing, like how we do, where it just releases one episode a week, or sometimes there's a monthly. And generally then we have translators working on that, and then we get it. Sometimes it can take past the season, but generally it's alright. And most of the anime, at least with One Punch Man and Seraph, they are based on the manga. And the manga's been out for a while, but with Seraph, it has an interesting bit where the manga wasn't as far as the anime went, but the author was working with the animation team. So it's actually, for once, following on point.
So much like the Game of Thrones series, where they have now surpassed the books and have to sit down with the author and go, all right, what are you going to write?
Pretty much.
Okay.
And hopefully you get their blessing. If not, then we're going to get a really weird story.
Well, I know, what was the one? There was one I was watching that really diverged from the manga, other than Akira, which the manga didn't get done till years after the movie came out. Was it Full Metal Alchemist that divulged from the comic?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a good anime, but it was like coming out the same time, and it was doing really good parallel, and then suddenly the manga stopped and the anime kept going, and it decided to go west when the manga was going east. And that's what we had. Have you heard about Brotherhood?
I have not.
Oh, well, years later, they've released Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is a restart of the series in beautiful animation, and they follow the manga to a T, and it has a lot more feeling in it. I think the original Full Metal Alchemist was short, but this is one of the longer series, over 50, I think.
And I know Brotherhood did show on, not Adult Swim, although it's during the Adult Swim time.
Yeah.
What is Toonami?
Toonami, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that one was very popular over here, much like any of the other big name ones, kind of like Death Note, Naruto, Bleach. All the big name ones get played on Cartoon Network.
Among anime fans, what is the general opinion of Toonami currently?
I don't know anyone who watches it.
Okay.
Most of the people just go to the streaming sites with like
Okay.
Hulu, Netflix, and all that. So I actually don't know. I think mainly the people who watch it on Toonami are still the children living with their parents and sneaking up and staying up all night. I could be
Well, I
wrong.
would certainly hope not, because they're showing Death Note and things like that.
Well, that's definitely what I did when I was a kid. Tenchi Muyo and Inuyasha, they weren't exactly appropriate for children's eyes, but they were cool, so I did it anyway.
I think it's fascinating that One Piece, which is aimed at young boys, although I like it
Mhm.
because, well, let's face it, I'm a child.
Well, yeah.
It's on at like 1 in the morning.
Well, that's because a lot of its fan base is generally set in the, I'm going to say 20 plus category.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't feel so bad.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot. I know a lot of my friends are into it, and most hardcore fans I've seen have been 25 plus into the 30s. So
Well, and it's been going on for a long time.
Ages.
It's funny how when I think back, it's like, oh yeah, I remember when that started. That was like, what? Like, when did they start showing that on Cartoon Network? Almost a decade ago?
I was still living with my mother, and
So,
ages. Many moons
Yeah.
ago.
in the before times.
Yes, exactly. And I just found out recently that my favorite anime, Code Geass, has been out for 10 years. I'm just shell-shocked because I don't understand. I'm old. I'm getting old.
Yeah. Whatever.
I'm older than God, Corey. I'm sure you just don't understand this feeling I have.
No, I don't. I've told the story on the podcast many times. I was moving stuff when my son moved back in and taking comic boxes and all this. And, oh, here's a comic box of stuff that I bought when a shop went under. Here's some newer stuff. And I open it up and it's all 20 years old.
Yeah.
It just, and then you just go, oh.
Yep. Me, when I saw the 10-year anniversary to Zelda Ocarina of Time, I was like, oh. I remember buying the first generation of that. That's fine.
Any big conventions coming up that you're going to or know about?
Well, the one I want to go to, but I can't afford, would be KatsuCon in Maryland. That's a really big cosplay one. A lot of dressing up.
One of the things that I notice when they do, here are all the cosplay pictures, is the more elaborate costumes tend to get more pictures.
That would be correct. I mean,
And
and
me as a huge Final Fantasy fan,
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that there are still people who are making the costumes for Final Fantasy games that are 10, 15, 20 years old.
Oh yeah.
Is that fandom still big, or is it just, oh, those costumes are really elaborate and look cool?
No, that fandom's still big. I mean, they're still putting out games, which a lot of the older fans are judging, mind you. But no, there's diehard fans everywhere, especially with the announcement of remaking 7 in
Yes.
beautiful animation. So,
And maybe this time it'll make sense.
yeah, hopefully. I know a couple of years ago at ASN, somebody dressed up as Cloud, but they painted really well, mind you, cardboard boxes, and he looked like the sprite. Perfectly
cool.
rendered the sprite. He was like taller than the door frame, but it was beautiful.
Any conventions coming up in the Twin Cities area?
Yes, that one. Those come around April. We have Anime Detour. It's, I think, the 15th to the 17th. And then in May, we have Anime Minneapolis. And for the summer, there's several more, but those are the ones that's near. We do have Anime Milwaukee in Wisconsin, though, which is kind of a stunt and throwaway.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you and I will have to talk off the air about getting the podcast there at one of these.
Well, I know at Anime Milwaukee I'll be selling crocheted nerdy things there, so I don't know how much I'll be able to be at the podcast with you.
Well, and I don't want to go to Milwaukee. I've been to Milwaukee before, and the whole city's kind of like like a flea market left out in the rain.
Honestly, I don't have the best opinions of Wisconsin, but it could just be the places I've been and the people I have met.
And the fact that you're in Minnesota.
And the fact that I am against the cheeseheads.
Well, yes.
Yeah. Despite loving cheese.
I have yet to find anyone who doesn't like cheese unless it's some sort of lactose intolerance thing.
Yeah.
And me, I'm not big on those who are intolerant.
That's, wow. Nice wordplay.
Well, thanks for coming on. We're going to be doing this every couple of weeks, so we'll be back next time.
All right, cool.
There we go. Let us know. Listeners, if there's anime or manga that you read that you like, let us know. If there's stuff you're interested in, let us know at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, and I will forward that message on to Lyndon, and Lyndon will bequeath us with knowledge.
Neat.
Lyndon's a lot like me for anime and manga. Enormous amounts of information is stuffed in that head.
Well, what are the odds of getting Lyndon to do his own podcast?
Well, we got a ways to go before I could talk Lyndon into doing that, because I've tried to talk Lyndon into doing more with... I thought Lyndon and I had a lot of fun at FalCon, what with the competition and with us doing commentary at the convention, but some people it takes them a while to turn around. I mean, how long did we talk about doing this podcast before we finally did it? A year? Longer?
I can't believe we've been doing it for 5 years, so I probably can't even think of
Joe,
that.
We are now at 6 years. Congratulations. We have been doing this tickle party, this ha-ha tickle party, for the last 6 years.
I'll drink to that.
And we are so well known and so respected that we now are asked to do reviews.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm all excited to do this one, because this also goes into what a second subset of what Corey and I get really excited about, pro wrestling.
That's right. We were sent a copy. Now, it's available already, but we were sent a copy of Andre the Giant Closer to Heaven, the graphic novel, to review. And, Joe, I thought I'd ask you first. Tell me about what you thought of it.
That's not the graphic novel I got.
Oh, well, I sent you all the information so that you could read the graphic novel. It's written by Brandon Easton and drawn by Dennis Medry, and it's available in comic shops, on Amazon, all over the place. It's the illustrated, authorized biography of Andre the Giant, so they went through the proper channels and everything, and now I'm concerned.
Well, tell me what you think about it. Let's hear your review.
I went into it thinking I knew a lot about Andre the Giant, because especially from the books that other people have written. I've read Bobby Heenan's books. I read the Big Bret Hart book. I've read a number of books where people talk about Andre. And Bret Hart was close to him. Bobby Heenan was very close to him. Other people were close to him. And, I'm a big fan of the movie Princess Bride. So I kind of had this idea in my head of who Andre was and what he was about. But reading this, first, it took about an hour to read, which for a graphic novel that's only about 100 and some pages is a pretty slow read for me. I usually read very fast, but I lingered over it. And it went from his childhood to his passing. It was all told first person. It was written in a way that this is Andre talking about his life. It was first off, it was a fascinating read. If you've ever been interested in Andre the Giant, if you even know about him from either movies or wrestling or anything else, it really gets into his life in a way that you feel like you now know more about him. So it was a solid biography. But the thing to me that kind of set it one step up was that it didn't candy coat anything. There were some things Andre did in his life that were not, things that he was ashamed of, things he wasn't proud of, mistakes he made. He had a daughter that he disavowed until there was a court case, and they did DNA testing to prove that he was the father. When he was over in Japan, he got into a pretty heated dispute with a wrestler known here in the States in WWF as Bad News Brown, where Andre was talking smack racially. And rather than, not talk about it at all or candy coat it. The book shows Andre explaining why he did it, not as an excuse, but this is what I did and this is why I did it, in a way that really felt like when someone gets older and they're looking back on their life, they have remorse over the huge mistakes they've made. I also did not know that Andre's amygdala was affecting him as early as it was. No one has talked about that at WrestleMania 3, which was the biggest wrestling gate in history with Hogan against Andre the Giant. I wasn't a wrestling fan, and it's all people talked about. So, I was outside of that world, and I knew about it. It was a huge thing. But he was already suffering the effects of the amygdala then and was in near constant pain, knowing that if he lived to be 40, it would be a miracle. The other thing about the art was the artist used a very limited color palette so that it felt more like someone talking about their memories. He used color in a way to help frame the story. And while the art's not realistic, the art is more a little impressionistic, but what I really liked is that the artist was excellent at choosing the camera angles, the shots that he used for each sequence. There are a number of sequences of people just talking, and he made them interesting by doing the staging and by sort of moving the camera around so that it didn't feel like talking heads. Andre the Giant Closer to Heaven is one of the best graphic novels I've read in a long time, and I want to see more by these creators. So Joe, you said that you didn't read it.
Well,
what the hell did you read?
Well, see, I know everything you talked about because I've read the book Andre the Giant: A Legendary Life by Michael Krugman. I mean, it's a real book with pictures out of WWE Press. And so I knew quite a bit about Andre going in. I read the book Andre the Giant: Life and Legend by Box Brown. This came out last year, actually 2 years ago, 2014. And it actually got reviews from Mick Foley, from Jim Ross, quite a few people. It's not as detailed. It just basically kind of like an indie press thing where he's just doing his own style. I mean, you know what the characters are, like when he's drawing Terry, Hulk Hogan. He says, the first 8 years I knew him, I took the brunt of the punishment when I was working with him. He would travel all the different territories, so he was well known. At the time, I was a young kid, and I thought I could be as big as Andre and as strong as Andre, and I'd go at him wide open in the ring, and he had fun beating on me.
What are we talking about? Beating on
Ladies
Joe?
and gentlemen.
Beating up Joe? What's this?
Ooh, you can if you want, but no, we're talking about.
We've got a run-in, ladies and gentlemen. Jin Wicked has joined us.
Hello.
We're talking about the legendary pro wrestler Andre the Giant, world renowned in his day, and he actually has 2 graphic novels out. One that Corey reviewed before you got here. And I could have used you, Jen. I was really well-behaved and quiet, which is unusual for me. And then one that I read when Corey said we're reviewing this, because I was like, oh, I bought this already. And the one I was reading, like I said, is more independent, as if it's his individual style. You can always tell Andre right away. And it covers mostly, how would you say, the stories and different things with Andre that happened through his career. I don't think it's as well documented as the book I mentioned earlier, but it's a pretty good buy, and they're both on the shelf. You could probably look at either one and decide which one you want to read. Like I said, one's more of an independent, probably tribute to him. The one you read, Corey, sounds a little more involved, as it isn't a single creator doing it. And like I said, I'll probably pick up the one you mentioned as soon as it's out, if I see it. Actually, I know I've seen it at the source. And who knows, maybe we'll revisit them once I read them both again and give you a heads up. So again, mine was Andre the Giant: Life and Legend by Box Brown from First Second.
And mine was Andre the Giant, Closer to Heaven. And as I said, it's available all over the place. And it's written by Brandon Easton and drawn by Dennis Medry. The next book we're going to be reviewing, because we're doing a review segment every week, is a book called Starve from Brian Wood. So we'll be looking at that next week. We did get another book to review, and it's not a typical comic book. It is more, well, why don't I have the person who put it together talk about it? It's a book called Octal, and I actually called up the person who asked us to review it so that he could explain it and what it's about a little more. I have Mike Schneider on the line. Mike Schneider sent me a copy of Octal, Octal. And why don't you kind of explain what this comic is, because it's not a traditional comic book.
Octal is a curated catalog of comic picture packages. Each package includes, like a mock cover, creator's page, 8-page pilot, design page, and one sheet. Essentially, it works as the first looks for a publisher considering the new book or series. But because it's built around the 8-page pilot, it also functions as an anthology for readers.
All right. And first off, with comic books, when did you get bitten by the bug? Everybody gets bitten by the bug because comics aren't something now that people go and they're, once they're an adult, they go, I really want to do comic books. It's more you got into them young and they kind of consume part of your life. So when did you get bitten by the bug?
Well, I had two moments because I had a middle point where I fell out of them and then came back. But originally, I loved, like the comic strips like Calvin and Hobbes and stuff, transitioned into regular books. My favorite comic of all time is a short series that Marvel did way back in the early 90s called The Awesome Slapstick. But then when, it came to, I remember the last real time I bought an issue was The Death of Superman, because when they put it in a black bag, to me that said, we don't want you to read comics anymore. Like, let's seal them up so that you can't see it because why else would you seal a comic in a way that, like, if you open it and read it, it loses all its value, That seemed at cross purposes was actually being a readable medium. But then I started getting into the back catalog and looking at anthologies and older books, and then when trades came around, and suddenly there were comics available that didn't have collectible value, it became appealing again, and then I got back into it through trades.
Oh, cool. So when you're reading stuff now, what's the stuff that really jumps out at you that appeals to you?
It depends on how you mean. One of the things that I like visually is art that looks like it almost doesn't work. The further it can go from being a comic and still function as a comic, the more interesting it is. That could be, the page layout sort of break the mold. You have pages that you have to rotate, lettering that's, plays around with lettering to use to inflect tone or volume or all sorts of different nuances, or introducing various symbols and visual language into it so it becomes a more complex multimedia experience, but even though it's straight on a visual page.
Some examples of the stuff that you're really enjoying now that aren't in Octal.
Well, I tend to slant towards anthologies because you get the widest range in the shortest length. But in terms of ongoing series, I like the new Doctor Strange series. I've also become a big fan of the Injustice series over on DCN, if I had to pick one from each of the big two.
I think anthologies have had a part in comics for a long time, but they've never really been hugely successful since we moved into the direct market era. Myself, I love the creepy and eerie that Dark Horse are putting out, and of course Dark Horse Presents. My favorite was one that lasted through the 90s called Negative Burn. I thought Negative Burn did some amazing, amazing stuff, and it also had a lot of new creators coming in. And as I looked through Octal, I didn't see any names I recognized. So are these webcomic people? Are these new comic people? How are you discovering the creators for this book?
It's mostly, I established the template first, for what goes into the packet and how the packet works, and then I put out the call. Some of these are creators that have been in anthologies that I've coordinated and edited before. Other ones are, word of mouth through other creators I've worked with in the past.
Okay, and you did get some publicity on Bleeding Cool. That's actually where I found out about you. And some other creators have also messaged me to say, hey, there's this thing that seems to be a really good idea. So there are creators who are excited about it. Are the publishers excited about it?
Yeah, we've already had over 24 subscribe to receive each copy of the catalog and review the packets featured in it.
All right. And for future use, if you are a comics creator, how do they get in touch with you?
The main thing for coordinating is the production group, which is facebook.com/group/Octal Comics. Our fan page is facebook.com/Octal Comics, and the website, which is still a little under construction, is octalcomics.com.
All right. And how often are you going to be putting these out?
Because of the fact that it's pitch packets, the focus is on quality as opposed to timeline. So as we get a packet that's up to standard or above standard, we lock it in, and when we have 8 locked in, we put out a volume.
So it'll be 8 per book,
Yes.
And it's available digitally.
That's correct.
And they can buy it off the website?
Yes. Right now it's stocked through drive-through. We have it submitted to Comixology, but there's a few months delay between production and, it going on shelves there.
You're getting a lot of newer creators in this. Have there been established creators, people who've been around the business for a while, who are contacting you to sort of put their pitches in this mailer?
Yeah, it's really a mixed bag. Like, even within the first volume, we have one with a self-published creator that is trying to find an audience still for their book. Some were coming from webcomics, some were coming from anthology shorts that they're looking to expand on. One of them was a foreign language creator that's translating and trying to find an English audience for their work. And already locked into the second volume is the Fantico's Night of the Living Dead series from the early 90s.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, it's been out of print for, it has the Night of the Living Dead London with Steve Niles and Clive Barker and stuff like that. And it's a great series. I'm a fan of it, but it's been out of print for over 20 years. And so I've been talking with Tom Sullivan from Fantico, and we have a pitch packet in the second volume that's designed to try to pitch the omnibus version of it with all of those issues collected, plus a bunch of supplemental materials that hasn't been published before.
And if any publishers are listening, I want to give you my money for that. That was one where because it came out so irregularly, it was hard to know when a new issue came out, and I always felt like I'd missed something with the staggered releases. So this sounds very exciting. I also really like the idea of just getting these new ideas out there for publishers and other people to look at. Are any of the creators looking to self-publish as well if they get a good enough response from readers?
Some of the creators have already dabbled in that. I think right now the main focus is to find publishers because, there's so many different publishers out there that are, it's really a spectrum of what the publisher offers and what they ask in return. So I think there's a right spot for everybody, but I'm sure that if they see a left response and they don't get a response from the publishers, that they'll find another avenue for their work. They're not just going to drop it, but it's really an odd situation that you would find a massive audience and nobody willing to step up and work with you to get it out there to that audience. You prove the audience and it's easy to find the publisher.
That sounds great. Also, with digital stuff, are you finding that the fans are responding to the digital? Because I know that there's a lot in the comics publishing world right now where, while they've been in digital for a while, they still feel like it's brand new.
Well, the focus, the this may sound off, but the focus hasn't really been on the audience. The focus primarily is on getting the works to the publishers. And most publishers prefer working with electronic submissions. So the release to the general audience is more to try to offset that, so we don't have to slap an entry fee or something onto the packet for the creators, because we'd rather see the creators put that money into their actual work. And I found, because I'm very creator-centric with a lot of my projects, the bulk of my audience tends to be creators and people into the field or into production on that end. And they tend to be more open to embracing new medium because it's a resource. The only other packets that you'll find online, like Jim Zub has a couple posts on his site, or one or two other creators that post their pitch packets. Right now, Octal, even just with the first volume, has more pitch packets that you can review than the web combined, because of the fact that it just isn't something that most people get to see.
Are you going to be acting as an agent, or is this more you're just giving a resource to help the industry and help creators?
Well, it's this model exists in other industries, so I think that drawing the parallel is probably easiest. For example, in the fine arts world, there's artist catalogs. An example of an artist catalog is New American Painter puts out one called Studio Visit. Basically, they're directories where they get a curator to look at work, and they create a catalog of the art samples, contact information, bios, show proposals, and things of that nature. And then it's sent to a mailer of galleries, art centers, museums, etc., to review at their own leisure and when they're planning out their season. So the main focus is to get this material, to a point that it's not a massive stack that, takes forever it becomes a daunting task just to get through, to the people who can review it at their leisure and hopefully make an offer to the creators. Some of the creators may, ask for opinions and stuff, but for the most part, I'm not acting as their agent, just introducing.
Now, do you have a job in the comics field? You said you've put together anthologies in the past.
I've dabbled with the creator thing. In between the different anthologies, I've probably had like 100 or so stories I've worked on published. But the main thing I've been doing has been coordinating, editing, and then assisting other creators with production logistics.
Well, I find this a fascinating project, and I'm really glad I found out about it, and really glad you gave me some time to talk to you about it. We're going to be introducing it to the readers, to the listeners, and go over. There will be a link in the show notes. You could go to the Facebook page, Drive Through Comics. I will have a link to that as well. Is there any future projects that people should be looking for from you or your publishing arm?
Right now, this is going to be the main focus. We should have another volume out by the spring. After that, we're looking at more comics that also offer a behind-the-scenes to the production process, like the development, like here's the script, here's the pencils, here's the ink, here's the color, here's the completed letter comic. Just take a short and present it in the different stages of production so that somebody can have samples of each stage of production and see how it goes from from A to B.
Well, that sounds great. I want to thank you for giving me your time.
No problem.
And once again, go pick up Octal. If you're a publisher, please contact him. If you are a creator, go ahead, see about being in it. But if you're a reader, Joe and I really enjoyed it. So go ahead, go pick it up over at Drive Through Comics.
So this is almost like a reverse of what we've seen. I mean, we've seen things like when Kevin Smith went and did Green Hornet for, that was what, Dynamite?
Yep.
That was his movie pitch.
Yes.
He also did...
Actually, it was the script that was adapted.
And he also had a $6 Million Man one. They called the Bionic Man.
Which was also a script that he'd written for a proposed movie that when it fell apart, he took it to Dynamite and said, here, adapt this into a comic.
And there was another one earlier that I would have loved to have seen, Jason versus Freddy versus Ash, that was done through Wildstorm. And I don't have it anymore because I sold the comics and I have yet to rebuy the graphic novel. But again, this was a screenplay / script for a movie, and when it was apparent it would never come together, he went to DC / Wildstorm and published it that way. Whereas Octal is kind of like, okay, here's what I've got, and I could see these being given to a producer and kind of flipping through them to figure out which one of these they want to option.
But it's also more for these creators to have something to give publishers, especially the smaller publishers like Boom and Dynamite and Maze Inc. and like Titan Books, and this kind of the second tier publishers to say, here, this is a proposed series.
Now, be that as it may, is Octal available to the general public?
Yes, it is, and he talked about it in the interview. You can buy it. It's about 100 pages for $3, and the stories are built to be self-contained.
Teasers.
Yes. So
the best
like
you can do is
them,
read it, and you want more.
Yes. And there's also contact information for the creators, so that if you really do like something, you could probably email them and say, hey, I really like this. Do you have more work? Do you have anything completed? Do you have anything that I could purchase? If you're a publisher, one of the stories in there has gotten a nibble from a publisher, as he talked about. And in the second issue, which is coming out soon, Joe, do you remember the Night of the Living Dead comic that Fantico put out back in the early 90s?
Not really. It wasn't really my cup of tea.
It did well, but Fantico always seemed to have trouble getting the book out. In the next issue will be a short story from there as a proposal to, hey, we would like to collect this whole thing as a trade paperback. Here's the type of stories that were available. I think it's a cool idea.
Well, let's bring our resident artist in. Jen,
What?
you've been listening to what this Octal is.
I have?
Well, maybe. Is this something you think you would utilize? It's kind of like an 8-page primer to say, hey, here's my story. Give me lots of money to publish it as a comic book or produce it as a TV show / movie.
Like a Kickstarter?
Not really, because he's actually publishing it. He has like an 8-page thing, and you've got, how many were in that first issue of Octal?
There were 6.
6 what?
6 of these.
I'm not a publisher. I have no idea.
No, but you're a creator. The question is a vehicle like Octal, would that be worthwhile for you to put up like an 8-page story and have it published by this guy who will then market it to publishers worldwide?
I handle everything myself. I don't care about publishers.
And I think that's one of the things that's very different about what Jen does and what more and more comic creators do, is they're kind of a do-it-yourself shop.
I mean, I'm not disparaging publishers in any way.
No. It's just not.
No,
that's
not a thing I would. That's not a thing I would expend energy on, because I'm gonna just do my own thing and put it out there and let people pay me for it or not pay me for it. I don't really need to or feel compelled to go through any kind of third party.
Do you think that this sort of thing is a good idea, or is it, no, just do your stuff and then work it yourself?
I guess it depends on the kind of support you need and the kind of story you have. I mean, my stuff is very one-shot, so I have more success marketing through the internet and getting traction through social media. Comics that are like long-form story comics and things that go over multiple issues, it can be harder to pick up readership through the same kind of channels for those stories, so they may have more success going through more traditional methods.
I was going to go through the ones that I like. The first story in Octal was called Necromancer Bill, and I fell in love with that story. It was a fun story idea. It's about a man who kind of has learned magic, but he's no good at it, and his pet raven, who is guiding him through how magic works, trying to return something to an electronics store, and things go horribly, horribly wrong. It was funny, it was well drawn, it was interesting, it set up the rules of its universe, all in 8 pages. And if this were a trade paperback, I would buy it immediately. Joe, what did you think of Necromancer Bill?
Well, that was pretty much the only one I can remember after reading through Octal, which tells you something about the other ones. But Necromancer Bill, I liked the premise. I found the art was simple, effective. It was a good story pace. You get a good feel for Bill, even though we just met him. I am curious, though, where this story fits. And, you know, I felt maybe this one might be better if you start at the beginning. And if it was actually as a TV show or a graphic novel, it might be more interesting to just do the classic beginning, middle, end, rather than, okay, we've had Bill, he's had his whatever for a while. Although I had no problem following along and, like you said, learning the rules of the universe.
The next story I read that I enjoyed in some places was one called Escape Velocity, which was very much kind of a motley crew of people in space. The characters were fun. The dialogue was fun and snappy, and there was a good story flow. But the art really kind of held it back. The artist had not learned yet that too many lines becomes really distracting. He over-rendered things because it was kind of in a cartoony style, but then he would over-render it, and the color just made it worse. The color was a lot of primary colors that clashed against each other, which made the art hard to read. I think as the artist learns and grows and learns what works, this is one of those books that the first issue would look pretty crude, but by the 5th or 6th issue, he would have found his style and a groove. But I like the setup. I like the characters a lot. I think there was a lot of humor in it. It reminded me a lot of the Guardians of the Galaxy movie in that there's kind of a caper feel where the characters are just kind of being pulled along through the story, not really in control of it, but not really... They weren't in control of the story, but it also wasn't just random stuff happening. And then the last one I read was a book called Freelance. And Freelance had some good ideas in it. Again, the art, it was really easy to tell that this person was very, very early in their art career because the figures were very stiff. There wasn't a lot of flow to the story. It looked like something, a high school art student would draw early on. But it had the same feel of that video game called Bard's Tale or the Piers Anth and the Xanth books, in that it was fantasy where they would twist things for humor effect. And it's another book where these guys get some work under their belt. They learn what they're doing. This could be a good book. The second issue of Octal's coming out soon, and we will probably go over it as well. And that's our reviews. Believe it or not, we're kind of a little shorter today. I need to, Joe, I made a mistake. I need to apologize for something.
You apologize for something? Shock.
Yes. Jen knows I never apologize, do I?
I'm sorry, have we started again?
Last week, Joe, you asked about Moonstone Publishing.
I did. Hang on, let me go listen to last week's podcast. Okay, I guess I did.
Yes, and I made a mistake. I mixed them up with the comic publisher Blue Water.
Ooh, you're going to hell for that.
Yeah, probably, because Blue Water's the one that wouldn't pay their artists, and Moonstone actually did pay their creators. They've used a lot of licensed books with permission. It's Blue Water that did a lot of stuff without permission. So I know there's very few people who read either one. But I apologize to anyone who might have been upset, even though I'm the one who caught the mistake when I was editing it.
Well, barring any instant podcast, we'll have to mark this one down. Podcast number 233, Corey apologizes.
I think you could pretty much say that in every podcast.
No, you don't apologize every podcast.
Sure feels like it.
You should.
You know who doesn't apologize?
The sponsors.
These guys, our sponsors. Believe it or not, kids, this silliness has actual real sponsors. Our first sponsor is Graze.com. Graze gives you healthy snacks sent to your house. You can have them delivered weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and your first box is free if you use the code CORYS3R5B. Our second sponsor is Bombas. Bombas socks are some of the best socks in the world, and remember, for every pair you buy, they donate a pair to a homeless shelter or other worthy cause. Just go to bombas.gotocloud.org/SF30. That's right, those are our ads. Go check out our sponsors. And after the sponsors, what do we always talk about?
We ask how Jim's been doing.
Joe's selling shit on eBay.
For now.
I don't know, man. It's snowing. I had to, I came out this evening to come home, and it was snowing, and it's actually pretty nice, because I don't know how much it's piled up out there now, but it was kind of a nice little coating of snow of everything. I didn't die this morning driving on the ice.
Oh, I heard it was bad.
Yeah, I got warned by 3 different people about the ice.
And what did I tell you about that you were amazed by?
I already forgot.
Joe knows about this stuff. Joe, freezing fog.
Freezing fog. What is freezing fog?
There can be days when it's foggy and below 32 degrees. So instead of the fog kind of burning off, it attaches to things.
Like my windshield.
Yes, and there'll be a coating of very thin ice crystals on trees and everything, including the road. Jen also learned today about black ice.
Black ice.
See all these wonderful things you don't have in Texas. Instead, you've got roaches the size of cars.
You know what? I'll take the ice. I will take the ice over the roaches. Though we still have your freaky... I haven't seen another one, thankfully, but there's still the freaky giant house centipedes or whatever that thing was that was in my kitchen.
And Joe?
Yes.
What are you selling on the eBays?
Well, let's turn this into a segment of everybody's favorite. It's getting rave reviews. Let's ask the Strode.
All right, let me get in the special chair.
Yep. I got my thinking grenades ready.
All right, here we go.
All right, Corey. Now, these are actual comics that I have sold out of my eBay store. Corey, tell us about American Vampire.
American Vampire was a Vertigo series. It was created by Scott Snyder, who's writing Batman, and Stephen King. And Stephen King was the co-writer for the first batch of issues. After Stephen King left, and Scott Snyder got a job writing Batman and making it DC's #1 selling comic by far, there was less and less attention paid to American Vampire, and Vertigo kind of had him end the first run and did a second season, which is going to be ending soon. And there's no word on if there will be a third season or not. It is not a book that I have read, but when it came out and Stephen King's name was on the cover, it sold very, very well.
Yeah, I had 3 of the variant covers up, and they got snapped up right away. The synopsis, according to AtomicAvenue.com, when notorious outlaw Skinner Sweet is attacked by an old enemy who happens to be a member of the undead, the first American vampire is born, and he is powered by the sun. He's stronger, fiercer, meaner than anything that came before. And there's Pearl Jones, who's a struggling actress in the 1920s. But I'm not going to give any more away. You can go read it because you got the series, and there are a couple books out with it as well. Corey,
But there's 2?
Tell me about Black Goliath.
Black Goliath, one of the supporting characters in the Ant-Man / Giant Man and the Wasp was what was his name? I can't think of the character's name, but he was kind of a support. Bill Foster. Bill Foster was one of the first African-American supporting characters. He showed up in the Avengers. He showed up in the Giant Man stories, and he was Hank Pym's assistant. And in the 70s, when Marvel was flooding the market, his assistant somehow got his hands on Hank Pym's formula, drank it, and became the superhero Black Goliath, which lasted all of 5 issues, was canceled. He showed up a couple other times in the Champions and, in crowd scenes and other books.
Marvel Team Up and maybe 2-in-1.
And also, Contest of Champions, and whenever they needed a whole bunch of superheroes to be, oh, look, there's Giant Man. But he was killed in Secret Invasion, I believe, as one of the heroes who, it's a big event, let's kill off some of the characters we don't use.
Yeah, issue 1 written by Tony Isabella. The artist was George Tuska, and then at the last 2 issues was Rich Buckler. Chris Claremont wrote everything beyond issue 1. Of note, issues number 3 and 4 have what they call a 30-cent regional price variant, where the price was normally 25 cents, but for whatever reason, Marvel changed the price, usually in Kansas City, and those are actually got a little heat on them.
The reason they would do that, they would test to see, basically the price was going to go up, so toward the end of the run, when they print, it's okay, we're going to change it to 30 cents. And they would usually end up in Kansas City because these comics were published in Sparta, Illinois. And they would go to the bigger markets first, and the stuff toward the end of the run would be sent to smaller markets, usually in the Midwest. And I remember seeing one for the Warriors 3, and I may still have that one. And you always knew because the comics would stay still 25 cents. And what that meant was they're not going to be 25 cents much longer.
The last issue of Black Goliath, as you mentioned, went into Champions 11, something that Marvel doesn't do much anymore, where they, that's what made their universe kind of fun, is because, okay, why'd you cancel Black Goliath? Well, we'll go into Champions 11 and find out. And I should mention Keith Pollard did the last issue of that one. So that was a short, easy one. Corey, for the last one today, tell me about Not Brand Ecch.
Not Brand Ecch was Marvel's humor magazine. Back when Mad came out, Mad was such a huge hit as a comic book. It is hard to explain how big a hit Mad was. Back in the 50s, even into the early 60s, but in the 50s, comics were at best trash literature. Harvey Kurtzman was one of the editors at EC. He was editing 2 books, while Al Feldstein was editing 8 books, and Kurtzman was upset that Al Feldstein was getting paid much more than he was. And William Gaines, who was the publisher, would say to him, look, he's doing 8 books that sell really well. You're doing 2 books that sell okay. Why don't you put together a 3rd book? Put together a 3rd book. I see the silly drawings you do on the back of the art boards before you give them to the artist. Just do a comic of those. So Kurtzman started a humor comic that by the 3rd issue kind of became a parody comic. And it became huge. I mean, reviewed in newspapers and magazines huge. The sales were, before Mad, EC's top-selling book was Tales from the Crypt. Mad, by the 5th issue, was selling more than Tales from the Crypt by a lot. And because of the comic industry the way it was back then, that meant everybody was doing parody comics, including Atlas, which became Marvel. We're doing 3 or 4 of them. And Stan always liked doing that sort of thing. If you've read Stan's scripting, he liked scripting the teenage humor books, the Archie knockoffs like Patsy Walker and Modeling with Millie and those. He enjoyed that sort of corny humor, dad jokes like Joe tells.
Yes, the good stuff.
And when Marvel became huge, eventually they, for the first part of the Marvel era, the early Silver Age, they could only publish 8 books. Then, when they got their own distribution, they could publish as many as they want. And one of the things Stan did was he wanted to do a parody book. And that was Not Brand Ecch, where he would do parody stories of the Marvel stuff. He would do parody stories of other stuff. It lasted 17 issues, although the last few were mostly reprint, and it was recently published as a Marvel masterwork.
And, of course, you know who Brand Ecch was.
Well, back then it was anybody who wasn't Marvel.
Well, that would be
but
DC.
By the 70s, it was DC because all their other competitors were gone. But he would call Tower books that. Dell was doing some superhero books, which are really horrible and a lot of fun to read and how horrible they are.
So the question is, what is Not Brand Ecch's one enduring legacy?
Forbush Man.
Exactly. The stovepat-wearing superhero. The incredibly incompetent superhero. Very good. Corey, you deserve this. I'll be emailing you a piece of pie later.
Well, it's about damn time. Go ahead.
I want some pie.
Well, I'll deliver yours fresh.
Now?
After I'm done eating what I got, sure.
You know what that means, Jen?
What?
No pie for you.
Oh.
Sorry.
Because he'll eat it all.
He's going to eat the whole thing.
I know.
Damn right.
It's just what a diabetic needs, more pie.
I don't know. There is a pie delivery service, I believe. Somebody told me there's a pie delivery service.
Oh, there goes that idea.
And since we're not going to get into that business, we should stick with the business we know, and that is freaking and geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Oh, I got a lot of freaking...
I got a lot of problems with you people.
Sit back, have some gin, let's talk about it. Now, most of them are... I've been a real big fan of the Simpsons game. It's an online app. It's kind of a cross between SimCity and The Simpsons, where you can play different things and stuff going on. Ever since mid-December, they sent an upgrade and the layering is off. So you have characters walking through buildings or you can't find anybody, and you try to place certain buildings, they disappear. When I get online to the forums and ask about it, they're like, oh, yeah, that was an Android issue that appeared years ago. It just kind of works itself out, but it makes the game impossible to fix. And when I contact EA about it, they're like very unenthusiastic about helping, because that means they would actually have to do something. Until it becomes a critical problem, they don't do shit about it. So basically, I'm going to just stop playing the Simpsons game, which is too bad, because although it's a freemium game, I have dropped a few bucks here and there just to play along with it. Dynamic Forces, you've got my ire. One thing Dynamic Forces does is every so often they have this deal where they will just blow out stuff at crazy prices. They call it their daily specials. Well, I bought one back in September, and it has yet to be fulfilled. And, of course, when I call them and email them, I get absolutely zero response. I had the same problem with Sideshow Toys a while back. I had ordered 2 toys, Scud the Assassin, and it was supposed to be an Anniversary Grendel Rose figure, or Solitaire Rose figure from Grendel that I was going to give to Corey as a Christmas present. Well, Sideshow sent the Scud figure, never sent the Grendel one. Of course, the Scud figure was $10, the other one was $30. So now I have a $40 Scud figure and no Solitaire Rose figure. I do not order from
By the way, Joe,
Toys anymore.
It's Hunter Rose.
Either way, you ain't got it, I ain't got it, and I got a fucking $40 Scud the disposable assassin figure. Now, to make it even worse is I was foolish enough to order a second time Another.
Oh, no.
This one was a little bit more. It was called a 5-star Cyber Monday set. And this was back in November. And again, it may be delivering in February, not a big deal. But when they did their Black Friday sale, I ordered 3 comics. 2 were canceled because they were out of stock, and I got shipped one. Well, they were supposed to give me a refund on the 2 that they canceled. Has yet to show up. And again, nobody answers their emails. Nobody's answering their phone. I didn't call them this week because they are in New Jersey, and they're probably up to their whatsits in snow. But still, shitty customer service. And, Dynamic Forces, I'm pretty sure my little bitch ain't going to make a difference in your business model. But really, am I the only guy you're screwing around like this? So basically, you're dead to me. The final thing, and this is...
Wow, Joe's got a bunch
I know, I don't normally have a lot of beef.
I don't know, I'm not really listening to him, so...
I don't blame you, because I don't really listen to yours either, but...
Wow! Snap!
I'm sitting here busting a butt, doing my eBay shit.
Joe fights back. Joe fights
surrounded
back. Joe fights back.
10,000 comics. I mean, Jen and Corey have seen my collection of crap, and my goal is to get rid of it, and so that's why I do this here business on eBay stores. Well, come yesterday, I'm sitting there banging away, and all of a sudden a little sign pops up. You have reached your eBay limits and will not be allowed to post any more today. And I'm kind of like, say what? So, thinking maybe they're just toying with me, I tried to post, and of course they cut me off. Apparently, eBay has these seller limits, and everybody has them, but they don't tell you what they are until you butt up against them. Everything I do counts to these limits, whether I'm relisting something, doing an auction, or doing just a standard sale. Now, what's supremely annoying about this is I pay $50 a month to have an eBay store whereby I get 600 listings free. eBay sends me another thing saying, guess what? Till February 1st, you can have 2,000 listings free. Not only that, you'll give you 1,000 listings free. And just for the hell of it, for 3 days, here's 1,000 more. Apparently, my selling limit is 500. So I can list, I've been offered almost 4,000 listings, but I can only list 500. And eBay doesn't tell you this shit. And it's also by dollar amount. So if you sell over a certain dollar amount, you butt up against your limit, you're cut off for the month. I don't get that concept. I went to the boards again. I listened to people bitch about them, and they're like, well, they're either doing one of two things. They claim it's for safety reasons. I don't understand why, because eBay gets paid when I sell shit, and now you're stopping me from selling shit. Another guy said, well, it's probably because of bandwidth. What they're doing is they're trying to limit bandwidth. They don't want somebody jumping on board, listing 1,000 items and never selling anything. And I'm like, well, that's fine and frickin' dandy, but I've been on eBay since 98. It was founded in 97. And I've been selling crap since 2000. If eBay wants me to go somewhere else, if you want me to close out the eBay segment on this here podcast, that's fine and frickin' dandy. But I'm mightily pissed off about this. So, folks, you only got to listen to my eBay shit until possibly August. Then I'm taking everything to the fall con and blowing it out. So if you want something, get it now, because it ain't going to be there. I'll probably go to DreamHost and set up a website there. Apparently they don't mind if I list over 1,000 items. I'm a little torqued off at this. Jen, what you freaking on? What's got you steamed as you find out you drank the last bit of your beloved vodka?
I'm not really angry, I mean, it's just very cold. And I don't really mind, but, it's cold. I just need thicker socks or something. Someone buy me some thicker socks.
Well, don't do it off of eBay.
No, do it off Bombas.
I'm sorry. Oh, nice. I'm sorry. I'm kind of sedate tonight.
That's okay. We're talking about a bunch of crap you don't care about, so it's not entirely your fault.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really, nerd-heavy episode. I'm not sure why I'm here.
Okay, let's do this. The last movie you watched is now your life story. How
Mad
bad
Max?
is it? Oh, that's pretty bad.
Shiny and chrome.
It's my favorite movie. It's okay. It's
I think
okay.
mine was The Emperor's New Groove.
Witness me. Corey, what are you freaking on?
Why, thank you. I received an email and a call this afternoon, Joe.
First time? Here, tell us about it.
From an employer.
Ooh.
Wanting me to apply. Telling me that they've got this job that they think I'll be great for. You know how I know I'm not going to apply for this job, Joe?
Because you've had enough working at Subway since the Jared incident?
No, because I've interviewed with them twice in the last 8 months.
3 times a charm.
But here's the thing: if they're wanting me to apply for this job that is open for a 3rd time, that means 3 people have left this job in 8 months. That means that either A, the job is hard to do and they can't find a person who can do it. B, the work environment is terrifyingly horrible and people are there for a couple of months ago, screw this, I'm out of here. Or 3, someone has filled the supervisor's desk with toxic waste and they're carted out for medical reasons. Either way, not applying. The second thing I am freaking on, we talked last week. The X-Files has returned. I have a DVR. I set it for the X-Files.
Oh, you're mad about football, aren't you?
I knew that there was going to be a football game. So I said, well, let's see. The football game starts at this time. They're normally 3.5 hours. It'll be over at this time. Oh, look, they've put some padding in there. I'll give them 15 minutes. I had a half hour of people showing pictures of football players celebrating after the game.
Football!
It's not the game ran long. It's not that they were doing, analysis. No, and let's cut back to the players celebrating their victory. Whee! For a half hour. So as I checked the DVR, I am missing the last 15 minutes.
I'm not. I watched it live.
Of the first episode of the X-Files. I am very glad that I have, on demand so that I can watch it. But when I watch it on in demand, I'm going to have to watch all the commercials, which defeats the purpose of having a DVR. Fox, I know football makes you a lot of money.
Football.
An insane amount of money. But you really pissed off a lot of nerds by invading their X-Files with your sports ball. Joe, what are you geeking on? What are you loving?
Sunday afternoon, before the X-Files fiasco, I sat in my living room with my oldest daughter, Dana, and we read comic books. It was fun. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the comics we read, but basically what's kind of cool is she tends to pick up comics that I don't. There's a few times we get kind of snarky, like we won't share each other's copies of Paper Girls, so we each buy a copy. But I was able to break in and buy some stuff, or I should say I read some of the stuff that I've bought over the last couple of years. The first one was one I talked about on a podcast of you in the past, Copperhead. It's basically kind of a Western set in space. I also read another one called Alex and Ada, which is about a gent named Alex and an android named Ada. And apparently he didn't want an X5 realistic android, but he discovers that Ada is a little bit more than just a robot. And the reason I mention these is because these are both image graphic novels, and they do something interesting with their first graphic novel of a series. They sell them for $10. So I've got 10 issues of a comic, both Copperhead and Alex and Ada, for $10. And I know probably the next issues will probably be a little bit more expensive, but it's a great way to jump on and start a series, and I enjoyed both these very much. I reached back way into some of the archives and pulled out a couple books. And the first one I know Corey talked about because he loved it when it came out, and I finally got around to reading it. The Infernal Man-Thing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Steve Gerber's last work with fully painted covers by, was it Keith Nolan?
Yes.
Or innards, I should say. They also reprinted, I believe it was Man-Thing number 12, where the main character of the three-part series originated from. This should have been a graphic novel.
It was planned as a graphic novel. What it was back when Marvel was doing the, the oversized albums that they called graphic novels. This was planned as part of that, and Gerber put in the script. Kevin Nolan was given the assignment, and it just kind of fell by the wayside as the editor who'd commissioned it was let go, and then it moved to another editor who was like, I don't really care about this, and it kind of got lost in the shuffle. And in order to put it out as a trade paperback, they first had to finance that by putting it out as a 3-issue series. And it stands not just as Gerber's last Man-Thing story, but Gerber's last published completed story, even though he wrote it in about 88, 89. And it showed just how good Steve Gerber was. That a book that is was written 20-some years ago still felt fresh and new and had new and interesting things to say. I cannot praise this book enough.
It was messed up. I mean, it was in a fun way, Another book that was messed up in a fun way, Frank Miller's RoboCop. This was from Avatar back 2003. I had these issues for the longest time. For some reason, I did not get issue number 5, which I recently acquired, so I was able to sit down and read it. Like most Avatar books, it's not all comic. They do a big section in back where they talk about their own press books, and they show all the different covers you can buy and things like that. I'm not sure if this was, like we talked earlier, one of Frank Miller's scripts maybe for RoboCop.
Yes, it was the original movie script for RoboCop either 2 or 3, because they adapted both of them.
It comes down to it because as you're reading it and you get towards the later issues, it becomes very bloody, very violent. The art is very good, but it kind of reminded me like, I'm in the action part of a movie. It's 9 issues. I believe it was published also as a graphic novel, but if you're a RoboCop fan, definitely worth picking up. Again, 2 gems that I pulled out of the collection, finally got to. As far as new books, I'm just going to talk about 4 quickly. Red Wolf.
Yes.
I was channeling Doctor Who for a minute. But this is from Marvel, number 1. Is it Apache? Native American? No, I can't say it. Cheyenne? Travel Alone? Cheyenne, thank you. And it basically is set up because he's back in time, and as typical, 90% of the white people don't like him because even though he's the sheriff, he happens to be one of them Indian guys. But it was a good book. There was a little controversy on this one because people were asking, well, how can Edmundson write in Indian when he's not an Indian? But, it came out pretty good.
Jesus,
a little correct. From Dark Horse, Mystery Girl number 1. If you have a question, she knows the answer because all the mysteries are solved. She does not know why she knows all this stuff. You're not allowed to ask how she became of this knowledge. But you want to know where your poor dog lost his fluffy little ball? Cool. You want to know where your husband's remains are in Vietnam? She knows. I think this is an ongoing series, but from Dark Horse, it's actually very entertaining, so definitely pick it up. We talked a bit about Aftershock a while back. I picked up 2 of their books, and after reading these 2, I may have to pick up some other ones. Dreaming Eagle from Garth Ennis had quite possibly the most haunting sequence I have read in a comic book for a long time. I'm not one to talk a lot about the story, especially when I think it's more enjoyable to just sit down and read it. But it's Garth Ennis. What else do you need to know? Pick it up. And then Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti did Super Zero. which again was one of those books. You think you know what's going to happen, and it's not going to go the way you think it is. And it's the cover is unfortunately only done by Amanda Connor. But again, another fantastic book from Aftershock worth picking up. TV-wise, I liked The X-Files. I got to watch the last 15 minutes. And, of course, we are podcasting during it, the part 2, and, of course, the premiere of Lucifer, based on the Vertigo comic of the same name. And eBay-wise, what I bought, this was going to be a Freaking, but it ends up moving into the Geeking category because I bought 3 copies of a series that I absolutely enjoy reading, Knights of the Dinner Table. Got some of the early ones, number 6, 7, 8, and 9. The Freaking was going to be is that this guy charged me $22 for shipping. But as we were podcasting, he actually sent me a refund for the shipping. So it turned into a Geeking, and now I think I've only got 3 or 4 issues to pick up. And the final thing I was geeking on, I stopped by a store nearby the old Hot Comics called Thrift Plus. It happened to be open on a Tuesday, and it happens to be run by the original founder of Hot Comics, Brian Messick. Thrift Plus.
Oh, you made it there.
I did. He's not normally open on Tuesday, but it just so happened he was sitting at home. He spent all day Monday watching TV and eating, and he thought, you know what the hell, let's go to the store. Because he figures his slowest days of the week are Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, so that those are the days he's usually not open. Thrift Plus is a thrift or consignment store. It's located in the same strip mall that Hot Comics was, at least Hot Comics St. Paul. 1550 Wiper Avenue, St. Paul. Amazing shop for a thrift store. It's well laid out. It's huge. I got to acquaint myself with Brian. We talked for quite a long time. He had a customer coming in buying a dining room set, so we kind of broke in between that. It's good to see he's doing good. He's kind of like me. He's like, you know what? You got the retail itch. You just want to do it. He's doing what he loves. He's doing what he likes. He's got some comics, lots of toys, lots of other knickknacks. Matter of fact, he just picked up a major estate sale. And that was one of the reasons why he was open that day, because he was processing and getting all priced out and stuff. So if you get a chance, stop by and check it out if you're looking to buy or sell. That's pretty much what I'm geeking on. Jen, what are you geeking on?
Well, today I put on pants that I haven't worn in like 10 years. Because they've been too small until now.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I know. It's actually like really weird because I was talking to my friends about it, and I'm like, and they're like, you still have pants from 10 years ago? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sure I'm really tired. I don't know why, but I've just been really tired lately. So if I sound a little run down, that's why. But no, but yeah, I don't know. Like I've lost over 50 pounds now in the last year. And there was a point last year where I had like way too many clothes. Actually, it was probably longer ago than that now because it was before I started losing weight. But I donated like my tiny clothes, but I kept like the 2 or 3 largest pairs of pants that I had before I, only had like one pair of pants that fit me, and I just wore it until it fell apart. And that one pair gradually got bigger and bigger. So I had the pants that fit me, and then I have like 3 pairs of pants that were just way too small. And this one pair of pants I actually have tried to put on every couple of months. For the past 5 or 6 months maybe, just to see how far I could get with them. And the last time I tried to put them on, it was one of those you can suck your stomach in and almost button them, but not quite, and it feels like something's going to snap. And I actually just, out of curiosity, put them on this morning, and not only did they fit, they're actually a little bit loose. So that was pretty awesome.
Cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Corey, are you on Facebook right now?
I can be.
Well, I just put something in there for you to geek on.
Oh, yeah, Corey, what are you geeking on? That's all I got.
Joe just let me know that the Fox Broadcasting Company has put the first X-Files episode up on their website to watch for free.
But you got to pay for the other ones.
Speaking of free, by the time this airs, it will be over, but Bruce Springsteen was not able to make it to New York because of the big, horrible snowstorm. So, he has delayed the concert, but to kind of make it up to people, he has put up the audio for the Chicago concert he did the night before up for free. Springsteen is on tour. He's doing all of the album The River, which is one of his best albums, and the first one that I really kind of hooked on and went, wow, this is really good stuff. As well as, some other songs and some of the big hits that everybody knows. But he does the entire album, The River, and that's available for free. And I'm really geeking on that because I'm going to be listening to that back and forth to work for a while. Saga has returned. Saga, as you know, does 6 issues, and then they take a break, and then they do 6 issues, and then they take a break. They are back from their break. It's one of those books that when it's gone, you kind of get the itch, and then when it comes back, you read that first issue back so fast that, okay, now I have to read it again a little slower so that I can absorb it and enjoy it more. It's one of the few comics that can do that, really, because a lot of comics, when they take a break and come back, my interest has dropped. I got the Case File Arkham book in the mail today, actually. It showed up today. So we reviewed Case File Arkham, and we all gave it a big thumbs up. The physical book showed up at my house today, and it looks even better on paper. It's a beautiful package. It's very well put together. It is now available to purchase on Amazon and over on 01 Publishing's website. And the last thing I'm going to be geeking on is 6 years ago, Joe and I turned on our microphones for the first time and recorded the first terrible episode of Crazy Comics and Stories.
Which you can download for free.
We had no clue what we were doing. We had no idea what the format would be, but we knew we wanted to do this. And in an odd twist of fate, 17 years ago this week was the first time I got an email from Jen Wicked, which I talked about last week.
17, you say?
Yes.
That's my magic number.
I know.
That's strange. It's strange that I should come back in the 17th year.
No, baby! You came back in the 16th year.
Shush.
Shush. God, he's always got a rain on a parade.
If we consider that a year is actually a space of 12 months that could move along a sliding scale.
Yes, you came back in the 17th.
Will you let me have this one thing?
I just agreed with you. So believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for probably about 90 minutes once we drop in the interviews.
Yeah, and you've listened to me mostly ignore them.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
I look forward to a time when, regardless of gender, ethnicity, orientation, or religion, all are treated equally as prey. Cthulhu 2016. Woo! Jen?
Hit my music, boys.